Hi, Leo. This reading already feels incredibly intense, and honestly, I feel like someone is becoming very aware of just how much power you have over their heart. Okay, there is a person here who cannot stop thinking about you. The more you focus on yourself, the more they seem to focus on you. This feels bigger than attraction. This feels like someone watching you rise, watching you glow, and quietly realizing that other people are noticing you too. And I have to be honest, that realization is making them nervous. Because every time your energy pulls a little further away, their fear gets a little louder. Every time you choose yourself, they wonder if they're running out of time. And that's the energy coming through very strongly. This person is starting to understand that losing you is a real possibility. And honestly, guys, that thought is affecting them much more than they're willing to admit. Okay, because the moment the star shows up, I feel like we're looking at someone who cannot stop watching you shine. And I don't mean that in a casual way. I mean, this person is paying attention to everything. The way you carry yourself, the way you keep moving forward, the way your energy seems to attract people without even trying. Honestly, Leo, this person is becoming increasingly aware that you're not standing still anymore. You're growing, you're evolving, you're becoming more confident in yourself. And the strange thing is, the more you focus on your own life, the more obsessed they become with yours. I have to be honest. There is a nervous energy surrounding this person that feels impossible to ignore. Because while they're looking at you, they're also noticing something else. Other people are looking at you too. The Six of Wands keeps pulling my attention. It's almost like this person feels surrounded by invisible competition. Maybe nobody has openly stepped forward. Maybe nobody has directly challenged them. But in their mind, everybody is a threat right now. Every person who likes your photo. Every person who starts a conversation with you. Every person who seems interested in your energy. This person's imagination is running wild. And I keep hearing them say, what if somebody gets there before I do? Because that's really what this comes down to. Fear, deep fear, not anger, not hatred. Fear, the fear of realizing that you may not wait forever. The fear of realizing that life continues moving whether they're ready or not. And while they're trying to figure everything out, you're still rising. You're still becoming more of yourself. You're still stepping into a version of yourself that feels brighter than before. And I think that's what makes this so emotional. Because they can see it happening. They can feel it happening. They're watching the distance grow. Not because you're running away, but because you're no longer standing in the same place. The Strength card is coming through so strongly here. And what fascinates me is that this person keeps focusing on your resilience. You've survived things they know nothing about. You've healed from situations they didn't fully understand. You've carried yourself through disappointment, confusion, uncertainty, and somehow you still managed to come out stronger. They notice that, more than you realize. There are moments where this person sits alone thinking about you, and honestly, I don't think they expected your absence to affect them this much. I don't think they expected your silence to be this loud. I don't think they expected to miss your energy this deeply, because your energy isn't just something they see. It's something they feel, and without it, everything feels different. Everything feels quieter. Everything feels colder. Okay, the devil is showing up now, and I have to be honest, this energy feels intense. This feels like someone trying to maintain control while completely losing control internally. Because they think about you far more than they admit. Far more than they would ever tell anyone. Some of them check your social media. Some of them ask about you indirectly. Some of them replay old conversations over and over inside their head. There is a fixation here. A constant pullback toward your energy. And the harder they try to ignore it, the stronger it becomes. You know what this feels like? It feels like somebody standing outside a window looking into a life they desperately want to be part of. They're not inside. They're not participating. They're simply watching, wondering, thinking, imagining. And every time they imagine a future where you move on without them, something inside of them tightens. Because that possibility is starting to feel real. The star keeps appearing beside the devil, and that's such an interesting combination. Because on one side, they admire you, they respect you, they see something rare in you, something beautiful, something difficult to replace. And on the other side, they're terrified. Terrified that somebody else will recognize exactly what they've recognized. Terrified that somebody else will appreciate what they've taken for granted. Terrified that one day they'll look up and realize the opportunity they thought would always be there is suddenly gone. And honestly, Leo, I don't think this person expected to care this much. That's the part that keeps coming through. They thought they had more time. They thought they could keep postponing certain decisions. They thought they could figure things out later. But your energy is changing. Your confidence is growing. And somewhere deep inside, this person is beginning to realize that losing you isn't just a fear anymore. It's becoming a possibility they can't stop thinking about. And that's where the energy starts to shift, because the moment this person allows themselves to sit with that fear, something much heavier rises to the surface. Regret. Okay, I have to be honest. The Five of Cups is coming through so strongly here, and this doesn't feel like somebody casually looking back at the past. This feels like somebody replaying old moments over and over again in their mind, wishing they had handled things differently. I keep seeing this person remembering conversations they brushed off, messages they never sent, feelings they never admitted, opportunities they assumed would still be waiting for them later. And the more they reflect, the more painful those memories become, because hindsight is a strange thing. When they were living through those moments, their ego convinced them they had time. Their pride convinced them they were in control. Their fear convinced them they could always deal with this connection another day. But something is changing. Something is forcing them to look at the situation from a completely different perspective. Judgment keeps appearing here, and honestly, it feels like this person is having a very difficult conversation with themselves. Not with you, not with anybody else, with themselves. Because for the first time, they're starting to acknowledge their role in what happened. They're starting to see how many times they pulled away when they wanted to move closer. How many times they chose silence when they wanted to speak. How many times they protected their pride instead of protecting the connection. And that's not an easy realization, especially for somebody who spent so much time convincing themselves that everything was fine. Some of them are struggling with this more than they would ever admit. The Nine of Swords feels almost overwhelming. I don't even feel like they're getting much peace lately. Their mind just keeps running. One thought becomes 10. 10 thoughts become 100. And before they know it, they're sitting alone, questioning every decision they've made. What if I had said something? What if I had been honest? What if I hadn't pushed Leo away? Those questions keep circling over and over. And what makes this even harder is that they're beginning to understand that some things can't simply be undone. Time passed. People changed. Circumstances evolved, and they're realizing that their choices had consequences. Honestly, this person keeps looking at who you are today and comparing it to who you were when they first met you. They see your growth. They see your confidence. They see your strength. And instead of feeling proud of themselves for supporting that growth, they feel disappointed because they know they weren't always there the way they should have been. The moon is creating such an emotional atmosphere around this reading, because hidden underneath all of this regret is a truth they've been avoiding for a very long time. This person was scared of vulnerability, scared of rejection, scared of being seen completely, scared of loving somebody who could actually change their life. So instead of confronting those fears, they buried them. They distracted themselves. They avoided difficult conversations. They told themselves stories that helped them feel safe. But the problem with avoiding the truth is that eventually the truth starts finding its own way to the surface. And that's exactly what feels like it's happening. I keep hearing this person say, I knew better. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, I knew better. They knew when they should have reached out. They knew when they should have listened. They knew when they should have trusted what they felt. But fear kept winning, pride kept winning, and every time fear won, they moved further away from what their heart actually wanted. Okay, this is interesting, because I don't feel like they're blaming you anymore. I think there was a period where they did. I think it was easier for them to focus on your flaws, your actions, your reactions, anything that allowed them to avoid looking at themselves. But that energy isn't showing up the same way anymore. What I'm seeing instead is somebody becoming increasingly aware that the biggest obstacle may have been their own resistance, their own walls, their own inability to fully trust what they were feeling. And I have to be honest, that's a painful place to reach. Because once that realization arrives, excuses start disappearing. The stories stop working. The distractions stop working. And they're left face to face with a reality they can no longer ignore. Somewhere deep inside, this person knows they hurt somebody who genuinely cared about them. And that realization is becoming harder and harder to live with. And that's exactly why this energy feels so overwhelming. Because once somebody stops running from the truth, they eventually have to face the depth of what they actually feel. Okay, I have to be honest, the moment the lovers appeared, everything shifted. Because this no longer feels like somebody questioning their emotions. This feels like somebody finally realizing how significant those emotions have become. For a long time, I think this person tried to reduce what they felt for you. They called it attraction. They called it curiosity. They called it bad timing. They called it complicated. anything that sounded easier than admitting the truth. But the truth has become impossible to ignore. And what keeps coming through is that you have changed the way this person experiences love itself. Not romance, not chemistry, love. There is a difference, because I don't think they're just missing your presence. They're missing the way they felt around you. They're missing the version of themselves that existed when they allowed themselves to be vulnerable with you. And honestly, that's what keeps pulling them back toward your energy. The King of Cups keeps showing up, and I can't stop looking at him. Because beneath all the confusion, beneath all the mistakes, beneath all the fear, there is somebody carrying an ocean of emotion they rarely allow other people to see. This person may look composed on the outside. They may act calm. They may even pretend they've moved on. But that's not what I'm seeing here. What I'm seeing is somebody who feels everything deeply and says very little about it. You know what keeps standing out? They're constantly talking to you in their head. Constantly. There are conversations happening that never leave their mouth. Things they wish they had said, things they wish they could explain, things they wish you somehow already knew. Some of them replay memories almost obsessively. A certain laugh, a certain look, a certain conversation. The way you reacted when they needed support. The way you understood things without needing long explanations. These memories seem small, but they're not small to this person. They're becoming priceless. And the more time passes, the more valuable they become. The Ace of Cups feels incredibly emotional here because this person is beginning to understand that what they found with you isn't something they've found everywhere else. Honestly, I don't think they found it anywhere else. That's part of the problem. They keep trying to compare. They keep trying to convince themselves that they'll eventually feel this way with someone else. And every time they do that, they end up right back where they started, thinking about you, missing you, wondering about you, questioning themselves. I keep hearing, why can't I let this go? And the answer feels obvious, because they don't actually want to. They've been fighting their feelings. They've been resisting them. They've been analyzing them, but they haven't released them, not even close. Because these feelings are growing, not shrinking. And that realization is becoming harder to ignore. The sun is illuminating everything, and that's what feels so powerful. It's like all the excuses that once protected them are slowly disappearing. The confusion is fading. The denial is fading. The emotional fog is lifting, and underneath all of it sits one very simple truth. They love you, more than they've admitted, more than they've expressed, more than they've allowed themselves to fully understand. Okay, this is interesting because I don't feel like this realization is bringing them peace. I feel like it's creating urgency. Because the stronger their feelings become, the more aware they become of everything they haven't done, everything they haven't said, every opportunity they allowed to slip through their fingers. And that's creating a tremendous amount of pressure internally. This person is beginning to recognize that love isn't something they can keep locked away forever, especially not this kind of love. Not when it follows them everywhere. Not when your energy keeps appearing in unexpected moments. Not when certain songs remind them of you. Not when certain places trigger memories. Not when they keep comparing everyone they meet to somebody they still haven't forgotten. And honestly, Leo, I feel like they're exhausted from fighting it. Exhausted from pretending, exhausted from carrying feelings they never fully expressed. Because what started as attraction has become something much deeper, something much more meaningful, something much harder to control. And every day that passes, those emotions seem to be taking up more and more space inside their heart. What keeps standing out to me is that this person no longer feels comfortable sitting still. For the longest time, they convinced themselves that there was no rush. They believed they could take their time. They believed this connection would somehow remain exactly where they left it while they figured out everything else in their life. But that's not what they're feeling anymore. Something is making them anxious. Something is making them feel like the clock is moving faster than it used to. And honestly, I think a huge part of that realization has everything to do with you. The Eight of Wands comes flying into this reading, and the energy shifts immediately. I keep seeing this person checking their phone, opening conversations, closing conversations, typing something, deleting it, thinking about reaching out, talking themselves out of it, only to think about it again a few hours later. Their mind feels restless. Their heart feels restless. Nothing feels settled. Because they know that while they've been standing in one place emotionally, your life hasn't stopped moving. And that's what's creating pressure. The Knight of Pentacles is interesting because I feel like this person knows they've been moving slowly, painfully slowly. They can see it now. They can look back and recognize how much time passed while they were overthinking everything, trying to find certainty, trying to eliminate risk, trying to guarantee an outcome before making a move. But life doesn't work that way. Love doesn't work that way. And this person is starting to understand that. You know what keeps coming through? They're beginning to realize that every decision they delayed eventually became a missed opportunity. Every conversation they postponed became another period of distance. Every feeling they refused to acknowledge created a larger gap between where they are and where they actually want to be. Okay, I have to be honest. There is a sense of urgency here that wasn't present before, because they don't feel like they're competing against another person. They're competing against time. And that's much harder. A rival can be confronted. Time can't. Time keeps moving whether they're ready or not. And when I look at your energy, Leo, I don't see somebody waiting at the same station forever. I see growth. I see expansion. I see movement. I see somebody becoming more comfortable with their own happiness. And that's exactly what scares this person. Because every time you become stronger, every time you become more confident, every time you create more peace in your life, they feel themselves becoming less certain about where they stand. The Two of Wands keeps appearing. And honestly, it feels like this person is standing at a crossroads. Part of them wants to stay inside their comfort zone. Part of them wants to keep analyzing, keep planning, keep waiting for the perfect moment. But another part of them understands that the perfect moment may never arrive. I keep hearing them ask themselves, how much longer can I keep doing this? Not because they stopped loving you, not because they stopped caring, but because carrying these feelings without taking action is becoming exhausting. They've reached a point where thinking about you isn't enough anymore. Imagining the future isn't enough anymore. Dreaming about what could happen someday isn't enough anymore. Reality is starting to demand something from them, a choice, a direction, a decision. And the wheel of fortune feels massive here, because there are moments when this person genuinely feels like the universe is pushing them forward, whether they're prepared or not. Little reminders keep showing up. Memories, synchronicities, unexpected thoughts. Moments where your name crosses their mind for no obvious reason. It's almost like life keeps redirecting their attention back toward the same place, back toward the same person, back toward the same unresolved feelings. And I don't think they're comfortable with how obvious it's becoming, because deep down, they know what happens if they continue waiting forever. That's the thought they keep avoiding. What if Leo eventually stops looking back? What if Leo eventually builds a life so full, so meaningful, so beautiful that there is no space left for unfinished stories? That possibility feels very real to them right now, more real than ever before. And I have to be honest, that's what's driving so much of this internal pressure. Not because they've stopped believing in the connection. Quite the opposite. They're finally beginning to understand how much they could lose if they continue treating time like it's unlimited. Something about this person's energy feels different here, because they're beginning to understand that intentions and actions are not the same thing. For a long time, they held on to the belief that you somehow knew how they felt. They convinced themselves that their feelings were obvious, that their love was obvious, that their loyalty was obvious. But what I'm seeing is somebody slowly realizing that none of those things matter if they were never truly expressed. Okay, justice is sitting right in front of me, and this feels deeply personal for them. Not because they're worried about being judged, not because they're worried about being punished, but because they're finally judging themselves honestly. That's the difference. I keep seeing this person looking back at situations where they could have shown up differently, moments where they could have communicated, moments where they could have been transparent, moments where they could have fought for this connection instead of expecting it to survive on feelings alone. And honestly, that realization stings, because deep down, they know that Leo deserved more than uncertainty, more than confusion, more than mixed signals. There is a growing awareness here that love cannot thrive when one person is left carrying all the emotional weight. Judgment appears again, and it feels almost impossible to ignore. This energy doesn't feel dramatic. It feels sober. It feels mature. It feels like somebody waking up and realizing that life has been trying to teach them the same lesson over and over until they finally pay attention. I keep hearing them say, I get it now. Not in a loud way, not in a desperate way, just quietly, almost painfully. I get it now. Because they finally understand why certain things hurt you. They finally understand why you stepped back. They finally understand why there were moments when your energy shifted. And what makes this difficult is that understanding arrived later than they wanted it to. There is also an apology sitting heavily in this reading. A real apology. Not one designed to fix everything overnight. Not one designed to avoid consequences. A genuine acknowledgement of what happened. I think this person is realizing that if they ever stand in front of you again, words alone won't be enough. That's what keeps coming through. Words won't be enough. Promises won't be enough. Excuses definitely won't be enough. Because what they're trying to repair requires something much deeper. The Six of Pentacles feels beautiful here because it shows me somebody starting to understand balance in a way they never understood before. Relationships aren't sustained by taking. They're sustained by giving. Not giving because you expect something back. Giving because you genuinely care about the person standing in front of you. And I feel like this person is beginning to recognize where that balance was missing. There were times they accepted your patience, accepted your understanding, accepted your support, accepted your presence, without always offering the same level of emotional investment in return. That realization is uncomfortable, but it's also creating growth. Because growth rarely happens while we're comfortable, honestly. I don't feel like this person wants another chance simply because they're afraid of losing you anymore. That fear is still there, but something else is emerging alongside it. Respect. They respect what you've been through. They respect your boundaries. They respect the work you've done on yourself. And for some of them, they're starting to realize that being part of your life is not something they re-entitled to. It's something they have to earn. Temperance brings in a completely different atmosphere. Everything slows down. Everything softens. And I feel this person trying to become somebody more stable than the version you've known before. Not perfect, not flawless, just more honest, more accountable, more emotionally available. Because they understand that rushing toward you without changing anything would only recreate the same cycle, the same pain, the same misunderstandings, the same disappointments. I have to be honest. This feels like somebody who is no longer asking themselves whether they care enough. That question has already been answered. What they're asking themselves now is whether they can become the kind of person capable of protecting something this important. And that's a much harder question because it requires action. It requires consistency. It requires maturity. And I keep feeling them wrestle with that reality. They don't want to be remembered as the person who almost had everything they wanted and let it slip away because they refuse to grow. They want you to see something different, not a speech, not a performance, not another promise. Something real, something steady, something that proves they finally understand the value of what they were given. A decision feels closer than it ever has before. Not because somebody suddenly has all the answers, not because every obstacle has magically disappeared, but because staying silent is becoming harder than speaking. And honestly, that's the energy I can't ignore here. The Eight of Wands returns, and it feels completely different this time. Earlier, it felt like pressure building beneath the surface. This feels like movement, real movement. I keep seeing this person reaching a point where they can no longer carry everything internally. There are too many unsent messages, too many unfinished thoughts, too many emotions demanding to be acknowledged. And the strange thing is, I don't think they're worried about looking foolish anymore. For a long time, rejection felt like the worst possible outcome. But something has changed. The possibility of losing you completely feels far worse. Okay, I have to be honest. I keep hearing them ask themselves a question. What if I say nothing? Not what if I get rejected? Not what if it doesn't work? What if I say nothing? Because when they imagine that future, it doesn't bring relief. It doesn't bring safety. It brings regret. It brings the image of years passing while they continue wondering what might have happened if they had simply been brave enough to speak. The Lovers is sitting right beside this energy, and it feels incredibly emotional. Because beneath all the overthinking, all the delays, all the fear, this person keeps returning to the same truth. You matter to them. More than they expected. More than they planned for. More than they know how to explain. I feel like they've spent so much time analyzing the connection that they forgot to experience it. They kept looking for certainty, looking for guarantees, looking for proof. And somewhere along the way, they realized that love doesn't arrive with a contract. It arrives with risk. It arrives with vulnerability. It arrives with the possibility of heartbreak. And for the first time, I think they're becoming willing to accept that. There is also a softness entering their energy that wasn't there before. Less defensiveness, less ego, less resistance, more honesty, more openness, more willingness to be seen. Because what they're looking at now isn't just a relationship, it's a future. The Ten of Cups keeps pulling my attention. And what fascinates me is that this person doesn't seem focused on grand gestures. They're focused on simple things, conversations, morning routines, shared laughter, feeling understood, feeling safe, feeling like they're building a life with somebody who genuinely sees them. I keep seeing them imagine ordinary moments that somehow feel extraordinary because you're in them. A quiet evening, a long drive, cooking together, talking about dreams, talking about fears, talking about everything they never said before. And honestly, that vision feels very real to them. More real than many of the things they've been chasing. Because they're beginning to understand that happiness isn't always found in achievement. Sometimes it's found in connection. Sometimes it's found in the person who keeps appearing in your heart no matter how far you try to run. The Four of Wands feels beautiful because it brings stability into the picture. And stability is something this person keeps thinking about. Can this actually work? Can this become something real? Can this become something lasting? Those questions are showing up repeatedly, not because they're doubting their feelings. They're questioning whether they still have a chance. That's what feels vulnerable here. For perhaps the first time, this person isn't worried about controlling the outcome. They're worried about whether the opportunity still exists, whether Leo is still willing to listen, whether Leo still has room in their heart for a conversation that should have happened a long time ago. I have to be honest. I don't think they're expecting everything to be fixed overnight. I don't think they're expecting one message to erase the past, one conversation to erase pain, one apology to erase distance. But I do feel them hoping for a doorway, hoping for a chance, hoping for a moment where honesty can finally replace silence. Because silence has carried this story for long enough. And every time I look at these cards, I see somebody standing right at the edge of action. Somebody gathering courage, somebody rehearsing words, somebody imagining how the conversation might unfold, somebody preparing themselves to finally find out whether the connection they've carried in their heart still has a place in yours. And honestly, Leo, that's where I'm going to leave this reading. Whatever is unfolding here, it feels like somebody is finally reaching a point where they can no longer ignore what their heart has been trying to tell them. Maybe the answers don't arrive all at once. Maybe everything doesn't happen as quickly as they want it to. But the energy feels different now. It feels more honest, more aware, more willing to face what has been left unsaid. As always, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves. Keep shining your light, and remember that your energy is far more powerful than you realize. I'll see you again in the next reading. Okay, bye for now.